7. You keep it hot 24/7. You got that bang for 102. sa.neter TV 2. Yeah.
You are now inside sa.neter Studios, the house of consciousness production, black news presentation.
All right, family. I'm gonna just say peace and black power, family. You already know what it is, though. I want to give you a double dose of the music. Turn it up then.
Oh yeah. Welcome to sa.neter Studios. We don't get no better than consciousness info. sa.neter TV 7. You keep it hot 24/7. You got that bang for 102. sa.neter TV 2. Yeah.
You are now inside sa.neter Studios, the house of consciousness production, black news presentation.
All right. Peace and black power, man. Peace to everybody out there, man, on this Tuesday evening. And you already know I got the fire coming in right now. Elder Yarah. Make no mistake about it. You know what this topic deals with. We're talking about the prophecy of the Pope, fact or fiction. You know, we want to go hard on this topic, but you know, YouTube holds us back from really speaking out. See, we can call each other niggas all day, but when it comes to this, they're not going to allow us to bang and tell the truth. Even though it's the truth, they're not going to allow us to do that. So we got to be careful on how we speak on them, about them, because they ain't going to allow that. And I don't want to get flagged. They already blocking me anyway, you know. So I start off by saying, rest in peace. Rest in peace to the Pope. Oh, man. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, man. Damn, Tahuti, why are you calling me now?
Call is not private. It will be recorded and may be monitored. If you believe this should be a private call, please hang up and follow facility.
We can hear you.
Register this number as a private number.
To accept this free call, press 1. To refuse this free call, press. Thank you for using Securus. You may start the conversation now.
Peace. Yo, Tahuti, see? Remember I told you, I'm live right now. I'm live with my brother Elder Yarah, and you always call me when I be live, man. This is it right now, brother. So anyway, what's up, man? You good?
Yeah, I was a little under the weather, though. I'm a little sick at the moment. But it was crazy because I was just reading an article in the Rolling Stone magazine.
About the Pope?
No, about the Nature Boy.
Oh, man. And
I seen it. And when I seen his face, I said, man, I thought it looked familiar. But he wasn't around when I was out there.
No,
but he did look like he was somebody from the neighborhood.
Yeah.
From out of Harlem.
Yeah.
And I said, wow, that was crazy.
Hey, Tahuti, man, I'm going to talk to you tomorrow, brother. I'm live right now, all right?
Okay. Yep. I'll call you tomorrow.
All right, my brother. Peace, man.
Peace.
All right.
The caller has hung up.
Hey, okay, all right, brother Elder Yarah, it's on you, man. Let's talk about this thing going on, man.
Yeah, man, most definitely, man. All praise to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, man. To our ancestors. Listen, man, this is it's funny that I had started putting this together a few months back, had it posted up on my channel. I was going to go into it. I was going to talk about the Pope and him blessing the Pachamama. If y'all familiar, anybody knows what the Pachamama is? It's like an indigenous deity of the Mother Earth. And so I was talking about how the Pope came out and actually prayed a blessing and prayed and actually bowed to the Pachamama. And so I was going, and as I was studying to talk about the Pachamama, I might even try to bring that up. So for those of you not familiar with it, I came across this writing talking about the prophecies of the popes, and I thought it was very interesting at the time. And as I started doing a little bit of research into it, lo and behold, the Pope transition a few days ago, so over the weekend. And so I thought I just would bring it out for those who may be familiar with it, those who may not be familiar with it. Most historians, I would say, for the lack of a better term, consider it to be a hoax. But the thing of it is that this was written over or close to roughly 900 years ago. But when they call it a hoax, we start to see even those who have read any of Nostradamus' works. He also talks about this particular Pope, not necessarily Pope Francis, but the Pope that is to come after Pope Francis, who recently passed away. And why? Because it talks about the Pope who's numbered at 267. So the 267th Pope, according to Nostradamus and according to other writings, and we'll get into it, dated back at least 900 years or so, they talk about that this is the Pope that is going to bring about world destruction and havoc. Not the Pope that just passed, but the Pope to come after this Pope, that this would be the end of the Roman papacy. And they actually give a name, which I believe is just an epithet, is symbolic, but they actually give a name of who this actual 267th Pope to come would be. But I believe in my research it's simply just it's an idiom. It's simply just a symbolic name. And so I just wanted to read a little bit of that and get into that, and then not take very long, but have people come in. They want to discuss or have questions about it. If that's all right with you, Si, then we can do
Yeah,
that and
let me
chop
ask
it up.
you.
Yep.
Are you saying that this is a ritual or something?
What I'm saying is what they're saying, what they were prophesying is that this Pope is like the what the Bible would call the Antichrist, or what the Bible would call the son of perdition. Some Catholic writings are saying that this was the Pope after Pope Francis dies. Pope Francis is listed as the 266th Pope.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the 267th Pope that these prophecies allude to, who should be the son of perdition, or the Antichrist, or the one to bring about the destruction of Rome. And when they talk about the destruction of Rome, it's talking about the Roman Empire that still exists. See, most people think that the Roman Empire was destroyed and long gone, but it simply has not. It just actually uh, became other nations, right, or even stronger nations. One of those nations being the Vatican, right? Most people don't know that the Vatican is its own city, on basically its own country. And so it's telling that those within the Catholic Church actually prophesied or wrote about this son of perdition, or this 267th Pope being the one to destroy Rome itself, and actually bringing about chaos and destruction to the world. That they themselves actually believe that. And I'll give you some more interesting details about it. So not specifically the Pope that just passed, but the particular Pope that is to be after him, that is to be elected after him. And so we know that's going to happen soon. So according to the prophecies, this newly elected Pope to come is the one to bring about destruction to the world. I can't hear you, sir. You're on mute.
I'm like, yo, that's deep there, brother. That's heavy. That's heavy.
Yeah.
Oh man, shout out to my Malik Maccabees, man. What's up, brother? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's up, man? You ready for your slideshow?
Yeah. Show the slides, man. I'm just gonna break it down for
the Raw okay for life.
Yep. Hey, I don't tend to disagree with you, Q.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's just wow. Okay, y'all see what it is. We're going to be talking about Pope Francis has died. Prophecy of the Pope. You can go to the next slide.
Okay. All right, y'all in for a treat right here. Let's get this in. Let's go.
Yeah, it's not that many slides, man. We're gonna get right into it. So this we're gonna be talking about. Let me know. Yep. The prophecy of the popes, right? So the prophecy of the popes attributed to Saint Malachi, right, is a series of about 112 cryptic or hidden Latin phrases purporting to predict future popes, starting with Celestine II. It was published in 1595, right, by Arnold Wyon, a Benedictine monk, who claimed it was written by Saint Malachi, a 12th century archbishop of Armagh. Now, there is some controversy to that, that most people say that it's not written by the hand of Saint Malachi, but that it was a forgery that comes later on. But it's very interesting of the many different things that's entailed here, why you might really want to question that, right? It says, so while considered a hoax by most scholars, the prophecy continues to intrigue and spark debate. And if you see, I have over here an actual image of the final part of the prophecies dated to 1595, page 31 in this particular document, where he starts to list the names of these particular popes and different things like that. You can go to the next slide, sa.neter. I'm not going to have you click the links. You can just go to the next slide. Yeah. So right here to your right, you see an image or a statue of Saint Malachi, right? That was commissioned between early 1500s, I believe, or something like that. But it talks about the prophecy, right? So here's the origin and the authorship of it. The prophecy was discovered and published by Arnold Wyon again in 1590. And he, again, as I said, he attributed to St. Malachi, but some scholars genuinely believe it was done, or it was a work much later done in the 16th century, right? So the prophecy has been interpreted in various ways, with some believing and predicts that it predicts the end of the papal lineage and the coming of the last judgment, right? And so the interpretation of the prophecies in this cryptic language that it was written in, it has this like subjective interpretation with it, has led a wide range of speculations about the identity of future popes and the timing of certain events. We can go to the next slide, sa.neter. Like I said, this won't be long. So again, the prophecy of the popes had indeed claimed that there would be 267 popes, right? This is what I talked about earlier. In total, before the church, and they were talking about the Roman Catholic Church. Let's be clear. They're talking about the Roman Catholic Church was expected to go under some sort of siege. In other words, when this 267th Pope comes into play, the one who's coming after the previous Pope that just passed away, he's going to turn the Catholic Church or the Vatican sort of into like this rogue thing, right? Where you would have to worship the Pope, right? In this particular Pope, he's going to want to be worshipped. He's going to wield political power, right? He's going to command an army, right? And so this are the things that they're saying that this particular Pope is going to do, right? So Saint Malachi was an early 12th century Roman Catholic Archbishop of Armagh. We talked about that, who was accredited with authoring the prophecy of the popes. So assuming one believes that the document is authentic, then the beginning of the rapture will happen sometime shortly after the death of Pope Francis, right? Which was the Pope that recently just passed. So a lot of this information was written before, again, going back 900 years, stating that the 267 Pope would be the one, right? So it says there are, of course, two issues with this claim, right? This is why I titled it Fact or Fiction, right? But I felt it was just interesting just to really discuss, considering some of the other things that have not been brought out, that we're going to talk about a little bit later, right? So some theologians argue that the document was in fact created in the 1590. We talked about that, or at least was heavily revised from its original state. And so they believe that is in fact a forgery attributed to an earlier figure for the purpose of credibility. Prophecies are never set in stone. And even if the Roman Catholic Church is only destined to have 267 popes, the circumstances may have changed so much in the last 9 centuries or 900 years that St. Malachi's predictions may no longer be reliable, assuming he really did write or pen the original manuscript. You can go to the next slide, right? So St. Malachi, with that said, the world is indeed starting to become a lot more intense, with global wars being waged in the age of nuclear missiles, overpopulation, technological advances that could potentially destroy humanity in ways that no one in any previous era could ever have. And this is sort of what they claim Saint Malachi was alluding to in this prophecies. This 267 Pope would bring about a destruction on the earth, a scourge, basically reigning from the Vatican, or reigning from that. He also he alluded to that the Vatican or the papacy would be moved actually from the Vatican and set up in Israel. And if you start to talk about a lot of and study the Catholic Church and what they're attempting to do with the popes, they actually even started to begin to talk about that, having a stronger presence in Israel itself, right? And so even as far back as 2012, some were predicting that the real date of the rapture would be in 2027. And they attributed this to a change in astronomical calculations, such as the swap of the Julian to the Gregorian calendar, to be the reason as to why the rapture is destined to happen within the next 3 years, right? Personally, I'm one of those people who believes that anything will happen is going to happen sooner or later. So I don't take too much into account in regards to these particular prophecies. But nonetheless, Pope Francis, was growing old, and I wrote this earlier, to a degree, and pulling some of the information. So Pope Francis is growing old. and fairly a pivotal moment in world history. So perhaps, the doomsayers have it right? These sort of end of the world type prophecies, these apocalyptic prophecies that you see. And again, as I mentioned, Nostradamus was one of those apocalyptic quote unquote prophets that actually predicted or talked about this 267th pope to come, right? And they will have none other than the alleged foresight of Saint Malachi himself to thank for this revelation. So I believe, a lot of people took from whether this was a forgery or not. You can attribute it back to Malachi, Saint Malachi, but we do know that it's been around and in circulation at least 900 years or so. And I believe people have been gleaning from that to sort of put these things in place. Now, here's the important part, right? Here's the important part. The Pope, the 267th Pope that is to be named, as I said before, I believe it is a title, or it is symbolic, right? And the title that they gave to this 267th Pope, allegedly according to St. Malachi as well as to Nostradamus, they called him Peter the Roman, right? Peter the Roman. And one interesting thing as to why they named him or called him Peter the Roman is because in Catholicism, they held and believe that Peter in the Bible or the New Testament, or Saint Peter, was actually the first pope. So this title that they give here for this 267th pope, or the Peter the Roman, basically is symbolic of the last pope in regards to Peter in the Bible, which I said before, they considered the first pope. So this is the first and the last, right? Do y'all understand the correlation that they're making here, right? And so this is sort of kind of their understanding of this, right? And so again, so let me get to the point where it talks about so they identify Peter the Roman as the final pope, right? And he will lead the church, right? But so for me, this is not a name, an actual name. So we wouldn't be looking for Pope Peter, but we don't know. They wouldn't be looking for a Pope Peter. I wouldn't be. I just think it's symbolic, right? And dealing with the last and final pope, right? Since Peter would be in the scripture would be the contrast. So according to the prophecy, Peter the Roman would be the final pope before Rome is destroyed, right? And that is interesting, right? Because the system that we're in now, a lot of us talk about Babylon, but that Babylonian system was carried on through the Romans, right? They sort of acculturated that Babylonian system, right? That system of debt and sin and conquering and different things of that nature. And when I talk about sin, you talk about sin as in debt. People don't realize that the original definition for sin was not sort of as the church fathers attributed to certain behaviors like gluttony and
You
lying.
See what Malachi Maccabee wrote?
What did he say?
It's on the screen. Oh, you can't see it?
Oh, I see it. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so these are the things. These are the things that it was made clear to me in this study. So I agree with my brother Malachi Maccabees. He's absolutely right that Peter was the first pope. They will tell you, you don't hear that a lot about when you're dealing with Catholicism and the Catholics. They don't say that a lot, but that is what they believe, right? And they even claim to have some of the bone fragments or the remains of Peter as well. I think they say they have a skull of Peter or something like that. They actually have his bones. But I just put down some of the links and sources where I was pulling some of this information from as I was reading and going through it. You can go to the next slide, sa.neter. Yeah, like I said, I'm gonna just winding this up a little bit. It says, so the phrase Peter the Roman, this is what I'm alluding to. Yeah, here it goes. Appears in several interpretations of Nostradamus and Saint Malachi's prophecies, both of which are linked to the idea of the end of the papacy and the ultimate fate of Rome. Nostradamus, in one interpretation, foretold a Peter the Roman, who would be the last pope to reign, presiding over the church during the time of great tribulation. Similarly, Saint Malachi's prophecy of the popes also mentions Peter the Roman. Now, it is my understanding that both one of these, more so Nostradamus, is drawing from this Saint Malachi's prophecies of the Pope. I think he's drawing from that and writing his own prophecy out. So I don't believe prophesying uh, two separate prophecies confirming one another. I think Nostradamus draws from the prophecy of the popes. And similarly, St. Malachi's prophecy of the popes also mentions Peter the Roman as the last pope before the destruction of Rome, according to the Hindustan Times and the New York Post. And the reason why I'm having to do this, I'm some technical difficulties, but in that article,
you're breaking up. You're breaking up a little bit. You're breaking up, Elder Yarah.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me better?
Yes, I can hear you better. You might want to say that over.
Okay, great. So if you guys actually go to that Hindustan Times, I wish I had my screen shared. I could actually link and go to it. But they talk about it in the Hindustan Times and the New York Post. They talk about the coming of this Peter the Roman. So they are very aware of this particular prophecy, and believe it or not, they're watching. They're watching for this. They're watching for this. And so out of that particular article from the Hindustan Times, which you see right there in red, it talks about the final entry surrounding Peter the Roman. Says the last pope will preside over the church during a time of immense turmoil, which will culminate in the destruction of Rome and the end of the papacy. In the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will reign Peter the Roman, who will feed his flock. Let me wait till it come back up because it just went out. Okay. It says, in the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will reign Peter the Roman, who will feed his flock amid many tribulations, after which the seven hill city, that's the Vatican, if you guys are not familiar, the seven hill city will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge the people. The end, the last passage reads. And so they have the Catholic Church has a similar apocalyptic tale to the New Testament as well as to the Old Testament, but they clearly have their own, right? And this is why I say there's a difference between most traditional quote unquote Christians. It is my belief Catholics are not Christians. They are not Christians at all. I know we have some people, on here earlier making that statement that Catholics are Christians. I disagree with that wholeheartedly, because if you begin to read instead of the doctrine, it's far from that. Far from that. What you read in the scriptures when the Israelites were first called Christian in Antioch, these were still Israelites, but they're far from that. This is clearly a Roman pagan. Some would even say, some Hebrew Israelites will even say, this is the understanding or the culmination of Esau, right? Because the Romans were given that epithet by some of the Jewish or Jewish rabbis, right? So next slide, sa.neter. I think that's the last one. Yeah. So again, Peter the Roman, the phrase Peter the Roman is a symbolic name. And that's from my understanding, right? It's not a literal prediction of a specific pope's name. It is understood to represent the final successor of Saint Peter, the first pope, who will lead the church uh, through its final tribulations and ultimate face the destruction of Rome. The prophecies associated with Peter the Roman suggest a bleak future for the papacy and the city of Rome, with the destruction of Rome often interpreted as the collapse of the Roman Empire. And so this is why I often talk about um, when we see images in Rome, we see things that we're able to connect. We would see the Mother Mary and the baby Jesus together in a painting. And then you have people who correlate that or compare that with Isis and Asar. I tend to agree with that is a direct connection from the Catholic Church to ancient Kemet. Beginning through the time of the Ptolemies, they sort of acculturated these Romans. They sort of acculturated these ancient Egyptian motifs, and so those depictions are pretty much one and the same. When you see people show that all the time. But what's convenient about it is that those depictions or any of those depictions always are devoid of the first century. Why? Because the Catholic Church did not exist as it does today in the first century. It did not exist. This is only a second century creation in which they reach back to the first century and claim that Peter was actually the first pope. And that was to give them some sort of connection. So you actually almost have to wonder why they even chose Peter, right? Even why they even chose Peter. One of the reasons why the Catholic Church chose Peter is because Peter was known to be at odds with Paul, right? And Peter and Paul were known for being an odds. So there's the famous scripture in the verse where it talks about Peter has a vision where the Most High tells him, "Don't call clean what I have made clean. Don't call unclean what I have made clean." And he shows him a sheep with many different animals, and most people think that that's uh, um, um, that's speaking against keeping the dietary laws, or that's speaking about the inclusion of Gentiles into bringing them into salvation. But if you actually study that, has nothing to do with those who are Gentiles per se, who are Romans, right? It's not talking about Roman Gentiles or Esau. These are talking about Gentiles, as we see in Genesis chapter 45, who are actually referring to other Israelites, northern tribe Israelites that were living in other countries, right? So that's that, sa.neter. So, hey, that's the end of that presentation. I just wanted to bring that out, and then come on. Anybody want to come on and talk about it? Bring, Malachi Maccabees is on. He want to come on and talk about it, and we can get it in from there.
All right. Beautiful breakdown, brother. Beautiful breakdown. Bringing it out. The link is in the chat. If anybody would like to join Elder Yarah in this conversation, the link is in the chat. Anybody would like to participate, join Elder Yarah, ask him a couple of questions. You have your opportunity. The link is in the chat. So, Elder Yarah, you can speak until the people come in.
Yeah. No doubt. And again, this is one of the things that I always found. Be quiet, dog. I found very interesting was that, and I see Sister Sakina, right, peace and blessings to you, Sister Sakina, that she says that Peter was a Roman, and that's the interesting thing about it, and why I said, why did they choose Peter and not Paul? Because Paul had Roman citizenship, Peter did not, but they chose Peter as their first pope, right? And so there's there's a lot of interesting things that go on. How you doing,
You're breaking up. You're breaking up, Elder Yarah.
Peace, Elder Yarah. Peace, Brother sa.neter.
Peace.
Okay, so my question was, I was asking was Peter or Roman. I'm glad you answered that for me. But one of the questions I wanted to ask, I did ask about that name carrying, because I wasn't clear on that. I thought I read that, but one of the other questions I want to ask is about saints. Are all popes saints?
Yes, all popes receive. Well, no, that's not true. Some popes receive sainthood.
Okay.
If they're confirmed to have some type of extraordinary work or some type of attributed miracle or something, if someone claims that they were healed by the Pope, then they would have basis for sainthood, and then it has to be voted on by the conclave of bishops and cardinals.
Okay, because Paul, I'm not sure about Peter, but I'm assuming Peter and Paul, right? Because they're part of my favorite candy bar, Mounds and almond, right?
Yeah, right.
They were martyrs, were they not?
That's true. That's true.
Okay,
Peter was martyr.
So in a sense, it's like Notre Dame's prediction. I'm not sure. Are you calling it a heresies? Because if martyrs are also popes, Notre Dame's prediction may be a heresies or maybe not, because martyrs can be popes, and all popes are not saints. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
that's correct.
So what are we saying?
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I know, like, when they talk about Peter's death, right, when they pretty much crucified him, but he requested that he was not worthy to be crucified like Yeshua, so he wanted to be crucified, so they crucified him upside down. They still nailed him to a stake, but upside down.
Well, wait a minute, let me cut you off really quick. I'm
Go
saying
ahead.
not for what they did to him, but what he did after the death of Jesus. He started killing religious people, him and Peter. This what they did to other people, not what was done to him. What he did, what they did, that's what made them martyrs. Because they started killing people based on religious values. And so that's why they were not saints. They were martyrs. And so that's what I want to go into. And then I'm going to leave so other people can come on. I really wasn't ready for this, but I appreciate it. And I'm going back to the chat because I want to write notes. Here, I can't write notes and stuff, right?
Oh, okay.
But that's my questions for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I'm not familiar with Peter having anything to do with people being persecuted, but I do know Paul, as you stated correctly. Paul give me 1 second.
Yeah, set that mud up, man. Ain't gonna bite nothing but bread, man.
I love sa.neter. He be trying.
You know that mud ain't gonna bite nothing but bread. All this food.
Okay, I'm gonna go down so more people can come up because I know it's only an X amount. He already got my question, so I can write my notes and everything in the chat. All right.
All right. Thank you, sa.neter. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right.
My apologies. I'm back.
What kind of dog you got, Elder Yarah?
This is my
That's
son's dog.
Oh, your son. Okay.
Yeah, this is my son. Shut up, dog.
What kind of dog you got?
He's a what do you call it? A cockapoo.
Cockapoo.
A cockapoo. Okay.
Yeah.
My grandma had one of them.
All he is is a alarm.
Oh,
hey, Elder.
Yes, sir.
Those dogs are so mean.
Yeah, they are. He mean. He mean.
They are.
Yeah, he is.
All
he
right.
is mean. Yeah, for real.
Right. Yeah, you want to finish answering sa.neter? Then we go on.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm not familiar with what with anything Peter did to persecute anyone, but I do know, Paul, you were absolutely right. After the death of Yeshua, as well as before the death of Yeshua, that Paul was definitely persecuting followers of Yeshua. And so oftentimes this is why I I laugh when people try to make the argument, well, Paul never met Christ. Well, that doesn't make him a contemporary. They still were contemporaries. He just never physically met him, but he knew of him, had to know of him, or else he wouldn't have been persecuting Christians. So, but as more to her point, it is because I believe, and she makes a good point, is because of what I believe Paul, in that stance of persecuting quote unquote Christians or quote unquote Israelites, is the reason why they chose Peter. I think they wanted to keep that argument or keep Peter in there in that illusion, because they didn't to try to use anyone else outside of Peter would have been very difficult for them to maintain during that particular time. A common lessons of this new doctrine that they had built, which became to be known as Catholicism.
All right, King J, you got a question for him?
Yeah, I do. Peace to the panel. Peace to Keon. Peace to Elder Yarah.
Peace, King J.
Definitely love your presentation. I watched it from the beginning, took some notes, so I do think I have an intelligent question to ask you.
Yes, sir.
So I actually looked at your source, read it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it said was it not from the Hindustan Times?
Yes.
Okay. I read it, right? So I would have a couple of little pushbacks for you, because according to my knowledge, it says that the prophecy of the popes was starts with not Peter but Celestine II in 1143.
Yeah, it does. There's at the very beginning of my presentation, I show a slide where I show that's the list of the prophecies, and I actually named him in that first slide, Celestine II.
Okay.
And
So
but you're absolutely right. Go ahead.
If I wouldn't say it started with Peter, but with him, Saint Malachi is the one who kind of came up with that, the phrases, like 127 of them.
Yeah.
And if we started at 1143 BC date and go up, it's the 900-year prophecy. It would take us to about 2043, right? So
yeah,
it's actually the prophet. It's actually the Peter the Roman is the next, like you say, the next pope. That so through 2027. So, but that's not. I just didn't. So were you saying that Peter was the first pope, or I mean, this prophecy started with Peter, or?
No, it didn't start. It's well, Peter being the first pope is how they start their count.
Okay,
that's how they get to that number 267. Peter is number one.
Not with Celestine II, because I'm thinking that started with Celestine II as the first number one, and they're counting from the 1143 BC forward to now.
Yeah, and see, that's the issue that I have, and brother Malachi Maccabees said it as well. Like they don't. That's why I said they don't really say it often, but that's what's in their literature, that they believe that Peter is actually their first pope. That's what they say. But for whatever reason, they're real sketchy about it. But when it comes to Celestine II, that does seem to where you start those cryptic messages that they attribute to Saint Malachi began to start with him. So you're absolutely right.
Okay. That was it.
Yeah,
all right,
absolutely.
Brother Keon, you on the call, Brother Keon. What up, Keon?
What's good, Si? What's good?
You got a
Yarah,
question?
King J. How y'all doing? How y'all doing?
Keon was good, fam. Peace.
Nothing much, nothing much. Just I wanna so
Went off again. Let's get back to Keon. Come on, Keon.
Yeah. So, so it's it's these things now. Let me say this, like Keon's back. I don't put any stock in any of these prophecies. I just find it something interesting to discuss, to know that these things are out here, but there are people who actually believe this, right? And they've even created some secret societies based on this.
Yeah. Initially,
Yeah.
I was thinking you were leaning towards maybe some sort of a Daniel prophecy, Daniel 8 prophecy.
Yeah, because there is a thing in that Daniel 8 prophecy,
the little horn.
Yeah, with the little horn and the different things. But that only leaves me, like I say, when it comes to the Daniel 9 prophecies, I know people use that as a future is basis for future prophecies, but I just leave it at that's speaking about Antiochus Epiphanes, and that's where I believe it should actually stay in my understanding, right? So yeah, that's another good question. Yeah.
All right, Keon, you ready? Yeah, Keon he's off again.
No, you dropped on, huh? Yeah, but yeah. So it's a lot. That's why I often say, if you want to, if people want to make the argument and the claim that Christianity was taken from ancient Kemet, I say the only way you can even begin to have any truth to that statement is at the event, at the beginning of Catholicism, right? There's nothing prior to that suggests anything other than that is all speculation. Anything in the first century is all speculation.
Elder Yarah, you see the unk on my hand, right? Would you say that would you say that was the first cross?
Actually, I don't believe that was the actual first cross. I do believe that one of the oldest depictions of a cross was what we call the swastika, right? But they found that when they excavated the city of Troy, I believe back in the late 30s, early 40s, when they excavated the city of Troy, and they found what they called it a circle. But the Aryans, the Aryans or the Germans acculturated that because at the time that Sanskrit writing that they found was some of the oldest known writing to exist. So they wanted to make themselves preeminent over every other race. So they sort of acculturated that for themselves. Yeah. And so that's how they began to use that. So, but I've had certain understandings of when it comes to that so I've noticed that there's depictions in ancient hieroglyphs where the ankh is being placed at the nose, right? To me, that's not necessarily a symbol of a cross, but one of knowledge. And I know some people say Tau, or you can get cross from Tau, Tau, or Tau from that, but it's a symbol of cross or knowledge that is. So in that aspect, it's possible you could say that. Now that I go through it, you could say that. But I've also read sources that it was like a latch, right, or hoop or a latch on a garment, and it's more closely related to Isis than any other deity, right? Yeah. So that's my
yo, King J, you did that yourself? Because I know you's a tattoo man.
Yep. When I first started, so I did all my own tattoos.
Yeah, that joint is bad, man.
I appreciate that.
Hold that up again.
Yeah, that's dope. I was looking at it.
Oh man. Yeah, that joint is bad right there. I like that.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good work.
I like the way you got it around it, with the red around it and all that. Yeah, yeah, that's fire.
One of my first ones. I appreciate
All
it.
right, we got Cube in the building, man. Cube, man, let's get it, man. Talk to us.
Yeah, what's going on? Peace, Yarah. What's happening?
Peace. What's going on, Cube?
Not too much. Not too much. Peace to the panel. Now, I just had a question off of something you said. You said that you don't think that you're Catholic Christian. What makes you come to that conclusion?
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you said that you don't think that, or you don't look at Catholics as Christians. I'm asking, like, what made you come to that conclusion?
Well, one of the reasons is because they don't really follow a Bible. They follow more so though that they have their own rendition of what they actually call a Bible, right? And it's not a King James version, it's not a Westminster Bible, it's not a Matthew Bible, it's not a Henry, it's not any of those things that we would understand the traditional Bible to be, but they have their own doctrines, their own liturgy. They actually do give preeminence to the Queen of Heaven. They will tell you that it's just Mary holds some type of preeminence or special place, but they actually venerate these deities. The Bible talks about worshiping idols and images, so you clearly see them praying to Saint Peter or Saint Paul and Saint Malachi. They actually pray to these statues, right, for different things and different needs. So they have a saint for healing, they have a saint for wealth, they have a saint for food, they have a saint for safe travels. All of that is antithetical to the biblical narrative when you talk about worshiping of idols. And that's why I brought out earlier how the Pope was worshiping this sort of indigenous deity of this Pachamama statue not too long ago. So that's the reason why I say that. I don't consider that to be Christian.
Right, but not wouldn't, but I thought the tenet, the main tenet of Christianity was the belief in the death, burial, and resurrection, and that isn't it? Because like to me, I think it's a sect of Christianity, but I don't know that's not from what you just said. To me, that's just not enough for me not to call them Christians because they still believe in the death, burial, and resurrection.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So like
Well,
I don't.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I mean,
No. That's pretty much it. No, that's it.
Yeah, okay. So when you talk about the death, burial, and resurrection, right? Muslims do, to a degree. They just don't believe Jesus was the actual person that was killed on the cross, right? They say that maybe he had a twin or something like that, or he got down off the cross. So but they all have a death or resurrection or crucifixion story. That doesn't necessarily mean that it equates to what we actually read in the text. And so even their understanding of death still has to be argued because they have a ideology or a belief of what they call purgatory, right? That doesn't exist in the biblical narrative, right?
Really?
No, there's no purgatory.
So what did the people in the Israelites from the Old Testament believe in? Because they didn't believe in going to a heaven.
No, well, actually, they didn't believe it. They didn't believe in going to. They didn't believe in going to necessarily what Catholics call heaven or Catholicism calls heaven. We don't
No.
necessarily.
I'm talking about the people, the Israelites in the Old Testament. They didn't believe in what the people in the Israelites in the New Testament call heaven. The Israelites in the Old Testament didn't believe what heaven or hell, how the New Testament describes it. So I would say that Catholicism's purgatory lines up more so with the Old Testament Hebrews more so.
Well, not necessarily, because when you talk about death in the Old Testament, right? They talk about they talk about Enoch being translated, right? That he did not see death, right? They talk about the prophets,
Elijah.
the prophets dying. Before that, in the New Testament says that they were held. By the time you get to the New Testament, it says that they were held, or their souls were held in a place called paradise, right? But if you understand what purgatory is a place where you die, you make amends, and then you go to heaven. That doesn't exist, right? So in the Old Testament, now you have some that will argue reincarnation
You're
has
not
that
dead.
type of reference in it. But that's why when I debated Captain Zariak, I'm like, no, you're debating Catholicism. That's not in the biblical narrative, right? Like, it just doesn't exist in the Old Testament, right? In that sense of the word. So, like, I don't think they have the understanding like the Hindus do, where you die, live as a human, you die, you can come back as a butterfly or something like that. I don't believe
So,
it's
Elder, real
Shirley
quick,
McCain type of living.
Elder, Rich, real off the question what you just said. When Jesus came back and his disciples saw him, but they didn't recognize him, that would allude to me that he came back not in how he was looking before.
Well, it doesn't say that it wasn't. He didn't look how he was looking before, and the scripture that deals with that is simply um, when he asked Didymus or Thomas, he says, "This is who I am," because you have to understand, they believe that he was dead,
Right.
placed
But
in a tomb,
I
right?
was under the impression that they recognized him by his spirit, not his physical form.
Well, again, the biblical narrative talks about him appearing in the
Uh-huh.
midst of them, or him walking with them, or certain ones, and it wasn't until later that they
Recognized him.
recognized who he was, right?
Uh-huh.
But it never says anything about his visage was changed or his
Okay.
facial features was changed. And what we know is that he asked Thomas the pertinent question. He says, "Look at the wounds in my side, the nails, the
Right.
scars in my hand." So
Okay.
clearly, if his hands didn't change
Right. For
and his
sure.
pierced side didn't change, I don't see why his face would change.
For
You
sure.
see, that
For
that
sure.
would be, that would be, a great fantastical story. Now, for me,
Uh-huh.
there's a whole symbolism that goes with that, but that's a different lesson and a different teaching,
That's a
right?
good point. Mhm.
So
Well, I got a question there. So
yeah.
back to what I was asking.
Hmm.
So if you're saying that Catholics aren't Christians, then would you say that the Hebrew Israelites are more Christian than the Catholics?
Oh yeah.
You said Hebrew Israelite Christians being the Catholics.
Yeah,
You
would they
said,
be more Christian than the Catholics are?
oh,
Uh-huh.
absolutely, 1,000%, one
So
1,000%.
okay, okay, so the Christians believe in the Holy Trinity, right?
Uh, no, there
Yes,
are
they do.
some modern day Christians do, but not biblical Christians did not.
Well, no, I'm going somewhere with this
Oh, okay, okay,
because
okay,
yeah,
okay.
I'm going somewhere.
Okay,
So
I'm getting
so
ahead of you. Okay, I got you.
no, it's cool. Christians today believe in the Holy Trinity.
Yes,
So does the Catholics, but
yes,
The Hebrew Israelites don't.
yes.
No, but
Okay,
listen, hey, Q, check it out before you go on. The Muslims, if you listen to Farrakhan lately, you will only hear Christian rhetoric. They don't even teach, you know what I'm saying, out of the Quran anymore. The Nation of Islam is teaching out of the Bible. Have you heard them lately?
yeah, it's
They've
Well,
been
he's
doing that
always
though,
done that to a degree.
Yeah,
They've
they've
been
been.
doing that. Okay, okay,
Yeah, he's always done that.
okay.
Um, yeah.
okay. So do Okay, Christians believe in the divinity of Jesus, right?
Yes, some Christians do. Yes,
Yeah, well, the Catholics do too. Do the Hebrew Israelites believe in the divinity of Christ?
some do, some don't.
Jews
But see,
don't.
but you see where I'm going though is that from what I'm looking at, I see Catholics being more Christians than the Hebrew Israelites because the majority of Hebrew Israelites, uh, they think that Jesus was just born of Mary. They don't
Uh-huh.
believe that he is actually the Father because how can you believe in the Holy Trinity and not believe that Jesus is divine also? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and
So
I agree with you. You can't, and so this is why I teach that you talk about Holy Trinity. First of all, we don't see the use of that term Trinity in the Bible at all. But what they have done is they've added, again, as I said before, they've added those comedic elements in. By the time you get to the Catholics, they'll begin to talk about
Peru.
they'll begin to talk about uh Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, or the Holy Ghost, are one in three different personages, right? I don't believe that the scripture teaches that at all. But their understanding of that is much more aligned with ancient Kemet
but
and
let me say this last
Catholicism.
thing. I'll say this last thing and I'll pass it. So you said that they begin to add those things in. Well, don't we see the same thing when it comes to the Old Testament and New Testament, to where we begin to see things added in that weren't there, or that they stop following or begin to follow new things? So don't you see new things added in? And I probably think I know your answer, but I see new things being added in from the Old Testament into the New. So if the Christians want to add new things to their religion, then I don't see a problem with that.
Well, if they add things to their religion, then does it actually change? Is it the same?
That's
No, it's
different.
not the same.
So that's my point. So when
But that's
in
my point with the Bible is that the New
well, but
Testament
but
added
you don't.
stuff.
But see, this is what I'm saying. In the Bible, there's really no evidence of divinity being described. You don't get that until you get to these ecumenical councils, and they start having these arguments about the hypostatic union, or was Jesus fully God and fully man, right? And you start to see divisions, right? Based on these particular arguments, right? Because these arguments did not happen in the first century, where
Because
he
Jesus
was,
didn't exist. He
well,
wasn't.
not necessarily if you want to make that point that he said he didn't exist, but they had that Israelites, the first Christians were Israelites. They wouldn't have never conceived that concept, you see.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk about this more. There's other people on the panel. Yeah, we can definitely chop that up.
Yeah, because so what
For
is
sure.
it, Josephus or is it Eusebius that mentions the first account of Jesus? Because I don't think the original Josephus even has Jesus in it. Is that correct, Yarah?
No, you got Christ. It's not Jesus.
Yeah,
It,
he
it,
says
it,
Christ. He doesn't necessarily use the word Jesus, but
so
we do have, and this is what I was saying the other day, as far as early mentions of Jesus by name, right, or
right,
Christ
right.
by name, or Lord by name. Like, again, there's only a few persons that would have been given that epithet, right?
Correct.
So it's difficult to say that that's not who they were referring to, especially when Paul, in one of his earliest letters, authenticated letters that most scholars agree, when he says this is James, the brother of our Lord, or the brother of Jesus. So it's, that's what Josephus draws off of. Um, and so
Uh,
it's at times that we see these different things early on, but I just in my understanding of what first century Christianity was versus what we see by the time we get to the second century, late first century, early second century, and the advent of Catholicism, it's clearly not the same. It's built on ancient Kemetic practices and understanding their motifs.
Yeah, I would agree. Just like that, there's, you know what? Let's pass it to somebody else. I'm sorry, I don't even want to keep talking.
There's nothing to argue with. He said what he said.
Oh yeah. What's up, Elder Yarah? My
All
stuff.
right, hold on, Keon, because you kept coming in and ducking in. I don't know what's been going on, man.
Well, I was just trying to explain it, but go ahead.
I'm gonna bring on Nepal first. See if she got
peace, Queen Nepal.
Then I'm gonna come to you.
Thank you so much, sa.neter. Because peace to Elder Yarah, the panel, Cube, Keon. I can't see anybody else, but my battery is going to die anyway. I just want to make a comment. Great presentation, Elder Yarah. And I want to add something. No worries. This is great because in 2000, I just want to see what you think about this. In 2017, I had put together this documentary about the end of the Reformation. Under that pope, this pope that passed, it was a 500-year mark from it was from 1517 to 2017, and I forget when he actually became pope. It was right around that same time, right?
So right around 2007, 13, I think 2013.
13. Okay, well, nonetheless, they had an entire procession, a huge convention in Switzerland, in Zurich, I believe, with the head of the Protestant church came together with the Pope, and they said the Reformation has ended. I always ask, like, why is nobody making a big deal about that, right?
Yeah.
So the Reformation actually ended in 2017. The church came together. The Catholic Church was is officially the head of the Protestants. Whether, I don't know, the Protestants want to come kicking and screaming, but it's true. Now look at this right here. Protestantism under Calvin in Geneva, or I think it was either Zurich or Geneva, but nonetheless it was in Switzerland. It was established. It wasn't under Calvin, actually. I forgot the guy's name. It was Heinrich somebody, but it was in 1525. That's another 500 years. And, people say, so that was 1525. So look at these 500-year marks. Now, I don't know a lot about that prophecy that people were throwing around like, oh, the 500 years are up and the 500 years are... I don't subscribe to that, but there definitely is some significance with these popes. The church, basically the Roman Catholic Church, is sweeping, the world, saying, okay, we're coming back as the number one leaders. And then I just want to add this last part, and I'll listen in because StreamYard drains my battery. This last part is this. If you look at the District of Columbia, you look at the Vatican, and you look at Geneva, those are all specific, how do you say it? They're not, Geneva isn't sovereign anymore, but they used to be, but they're all sovereign from the other countries that they're within, like the Vatican. And so we got to keep our eyes on things like that, like the Vatican, District of Columbia, Switzerland, in Geneva. So I just wanted to add those pieces. I'm not saying whatever, but I did want to see what you think about it. Thank you for letting me add that. I'm gonna get out of StreamYard, but I just want to hear your feedback on that. And peace to everybody. Thank you.
Peace. Yeah, that was great input, because one of the things that she mentioned, Sister Nepal mentioned, I want people to remember when she mentioned Heinrich, right, in 1525. Do you guys remember the other day when Jabari and Sankofa and the new Dr. Reggie was on? Jabari showed a picture that was done by Heinrich, which shows Jesus in the middle with the two Marys on the side, and he correlated that to the two Marys with the Jed pillar in the middle or something like that, holding up the sun. See, this is what I'm saying. Like, those guys always connect back to ancient Kemet. these Roman Catholics, they always stretch back to the imagery of ancient Kemet. So I don't deny that those things are the same, but it's not the first century Christian movement where it began. It has no connection to it. That's why they can't ever show you anything in the first century.
Okay. So Elder,
It's
you're
not
saying that
until
they're drawing straight from Kemet, not drawing from Christianity itself, correct?
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. They're drawing straight from ancient Kemet.
Okay.
When you talk about Catholicism, so this is why, again, the image of Mary and the baby Jesus looks just like the image of Isis and Heru. That's the
So
reason why they look the same.
you're referring to the Black Madonna, right?
Exactly, exactly. And if you notice, if you study, the Black Madonna is still very prevalent and
Oh yeah.
prominent in Europe. And guess who go and bows down to that Black Madonna?
Mm-hmm.
Those popes.
Yeah.
The Catholics, they worship that Black Madonna. And
Mm-hmm.
guess what? It's only a depiction of Isis,
Uh-huh.
but they refer to it as Mary, the mother of Jesus. This is why I was saying to Cube, I don't consider them to be Christian, right? I just don't, because they have a completely different belief system. And if you're not careful, Sister Napas said, you'll be easily confused, even with some of these debates and arguments that go along. I'm like, yeah, but you're only arguing Catholicism versus ancient Kemet. Yeah, they took a lot. I dare to say they took almost everything, right? But you can actually see that even in some of the decrees that Constantine did when he came to power. One of the things that Constantine did was what he recognized was that he could not squash that new Christian movement, right? Those Israelites converting to this belief, or the followers of the way, or Christ. So what he did was, instead of destroying because what was happening is these converts to Christianity were no longer going to these Greek and Roman temples and paying, right, and leaving tribute. They were no longer doing that, because the new Christians, like the Israelites, say, hey, listen, we don't worship idols. We're not going in the temple of Diana. We're not going to do this. And so, yeah, so what they did, so what Constantine suggests, basically, when he got those cardinals together, which now they call them cardinals, he got those pagan temple priests together. They form what we call cardinals today. This is why they wear the red, right? And basically what he said was, and there's an argument for this actually in the New Testament, about how the Christians stopped buying idols from a blacksmith named Demetrius in the scripture. And he made a big argument about it to the people, to the officials in Rome, saying, hey, we got to do something about these Christians, because we're not making any money. And if we don't make money, we can't pay you taxes, because they're no longer buying idols to take to the temples of Athena and Diana. So what Constantine came up with is basically saying, listen, instead of them worshiping Jupiter and these depictions of these Greek and Roman statues, we're going to leave the statues in these temples, and we'll just rename them after the apostles. We'll just name them after biblical figures. And so this is how you get the introduction of quote unquote Catholics praying to St. Peter, St. Paul. St. Peter was originally the same depiction of the statue of Jupiter, right? Or Zeus. It's the same depiction, same deity. They just renamed it.
Would you say that in those temples there would be also the local deity in there as well, to where they would be able to come side by side and worship and pray at the same time?
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
we have
Mm-hmm.
the Apis bull, which Sirach,
Mm-hmm.
that, you know what I'm saying, that as well. But my
Mm-hmm.
question, you mentioned followers of the way, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I've always wondered this. and you tied it back to Egypt. So are you familiar with the Shemshu Hor?
Not necessarily, no.
So Shemshu is just another way of saying followers. So Shemshu Hor would be followers of Horus. So every time I hear this followers of the way, I always wonder with this particular cult, because it was a solar cult.
Right? Yeah. But I had a debate on this channel discussion with Edward Dodge, and what I showed him was in the debate is Yahweh El, are they two of the same deities, or are they separate? What I showed him is that there's an older culture of Yahweh or Yahweh worshipers that dates back to a priesthood that's mentioned in the Bible. They're referred to as the Horites. Now, if you understand who the Hori are, the Horites and the Hori, that is where you get Horus. That's where Horus comes in at, right? So we know that, there existed these Horites, right?
Those were the priests. Those were the priests.
They were the priests, right? They were the top priests. Now, people used to say who these Horites were. They weren't African, but clearly they were African, right? They were African. They were African people. I believe they were an Asiatic African people. But when you talk about the Hori, the Horites, the priest of Heru, it didn't. And if you actually study, I want to say there's an old source with Flanders. I believe it's Flanders Petrie. Flanders Petrie talks about the
time out, brother Yarah. Time out, man. Don't think I'm not listening. I'm listening.
Yeah, you said ahead,
you said that's where they get the term. Who get the term Horus? What are you talking about?
We're talking about the Shemshu Hor.
I want to hear Elder Yarah.
Yeah, as the brother was saying, Shemshu Hori. So when you talk about Hori, I know that they are mentioned in the Bible, but there's
just deal with the question I'm asking you, brother. You said that's where they get the term, or the name Horus from.
Yeah, I believe they do.
Who get that from them?
The ancient people of Kemet, the ancient Egyptians.
That's where you're wrong at, brother. That's why you got to be careful, because they didn't call him Horus. His name, that's where the Greeks get it. Now, if you say that's where the Greeks get it from, then I say, okay, you're correct. But the ancient Kemetic people didn't get nothing. They called him Horus. They called him Asar. That was his name. Asar. Not Horus, brother.
Asar?
The Greeks, that's the Greek term, is Horus. Yeah. That's why when you said hold up, did he just say that?
Yeah, because again, that's not really what I'm saying, sir.
Okay, all right. That's why I wanted to make it.
What I'm saying is there's a old, now it's an old source, but I go with old sources.
Jabari and New Reggie that you call the New Reggie, you funny with that. That he might be watching you, brother. So I'm trying to.
Reggie. Oh yeah.
Yeah, brother. They could be watching you, man.
Yeah, that's great. But again, Flanders Petrie, I believe it's Flanders Petrie, he talks about the Elamite tribe. And he says that it is the Elamites who introduced the falcon bird, that falcon-headed symbol into ancient Kemet. Now, those people, the Elamites, were a people that were connected to the Hori tribe, or the quote-unquote Horites, which is the Greek term. So they go back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. But I always tell people, even when you're reading in the Bible, all you're really reading about, to a degree, is warring priesthoods. They were always at war with each other, and the Bible just gives us a depiction of which priesthood actually won out that battle, right? And so this is why it talks about the tribe of Judah, and the scepter or the kingship shall never leave from the tribe of Judah, because the tribe of Judah is the tribe that won out in the biblical narrative.
That's a fact. Y'all right. Y'all right. Quick question. So listen,
Yeah.
I'm reading this earlier today, right? So I don't know if you're familiar with this, right? So there seems to be two Judahs, two Yoedas, right? There's a northern one, right? So when we're talking about, so basically I came to this knowledge because I'm specifically studying Chaldeans and Aramaeans. Chaldean history. So when I'm studying the Chaldean history, they are the northern. When we're talking about the Hittites up there next to in Turkey, next to Haran and Aram, that is where. So, but what in Aramaic is so Judah is Aramaic. Weda, that's Aramaic. The word back then, when we find it, will be under Samal. Somali, like Samal, Samal, and it's actually it's a language, but it's a Semitic speaking. They're Chaldeans. That's Chaldeans. This is the Chaldean history, and where they came from before they went into Mesopotamia about 800 BC. Right.
Right, and
So
that would be correct. Yeah, that would be correct because what we see.
Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought. I don't want you to lose your thought.
So is Judah ben Benjamin, the sons of the south, and then is Judah Bar Samal, and that's the northern kingdom of Judah.
And so what happens is the reason why it's important that you give that date, because we know specifically according to the biblical narrative around 900, 930 BCE, this is when the northern tribe and the southern tribe of Judah split.
Okay.
After the death of King Solomon. Right. After the death of King Solomon, northern tribe, southern tribe split around that time.
Those northern tribes became known as Aramaeans.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. And so this is oftentimes the confusion that many people have. So now you fast forward 200 years to the Assyrian captivity. Those northern tribes, those Aramaeans, are the ones that are taken and deported, right? And when they're taken and deported, now they're still Israelites, but they're in these other foreign lands, right? And they're speaking these other foreign languages, right? And they're not all they're not all keeping the law, right, of Moses. They're practice. They have these other quote unquote Gentile practices. They're living now as Gentiles. And so Ephraim, who has African blood in him, right? Because his mother was an African, right? An Egyptian. Ephraim is the largest tribe at the time. And what happens is that the whole northern tribe of Israel begins to be referred to as the tribe of Ephraim, but it encapsulates all of those northern tribes. And that's why I mentioned in Genesis chapter 45, Ephraim they're called Gentiles. And so that's why I say it's clear that the southern tribes of Judah is the ones that won out, right? Because now they're calling them Gentiles, and the kingship has to remain in Judah, not coming from the northern tribes. And so now this is where you get this whole argument. This is why I say when you're reading about Gentiles in the New Testament, and the pulling together these Gentiles is still talking about Israelites, in my opinion. I know sa.neter don't agree, but it's still talking about Israelites, but it's referred to they're referred to as Gentiles, and that's because
Go ahead. But I was going to ask. So would it be, because what I'm saying is the El worship, it seems to be 11 strictly it's El. Yahweh seems to be coming in, like imported in. Yahweh wouldn't be a local
that
Canaanite.
would be with Right. That would be with the tribe of Judah. The Yahweh or Yahweh, right?
In
That
that
would come
northern.
in with some
Okay,
southern tribe.
exactly.
Yeah. And those
Uh-huh.
northerners,
Uh-huh.
those northern tribes, most of their appetites, they would still hold on to El, right?
Uh-huh.
But they use it um as a appetite going back to how far they understood El to be in history, right? Because there's older references
Yeah,
to El or even Yahweh El, but it's found in the Akkadian
of course.
language, right?
Uh-huh.
So that's before you even get an Israelite on the
So
scene.
you would be referring to the Ugaritic script.
Yeah, exactly. They
Uh-huh.
they refer to uh uh
Elil.
yeah, Iliel or Yahweh
Um,
El. You'll see that,
uh,
right? Um, but again, that's even before you get to an Israelite, right?
or,
Before Israelites even come on the scene. So anytime you see one with El, they're reaching back to that older, ancient
uh-huh.
belief that
Uh-huh.
they know that their ancestors, when you get to the tribe of Judah, you see more of this Yah or
Yeah.
Yahweh, right?
Uh-huh.
That they attribute to, but they believe that it is El. They believe it's one and the same.
Uh-huh.
So and so they sort of do that. So
Uh-huh.
it's one of those things where if you're if you're not really familiar with at least a little bit of that history, you'll
Uh-huh.
say, well, yeah, he's talking about two different deities here, because people always say, well, see, El gave Yahweh his portion. No, it's talking about the same deity. They didn't have
Uh-huh.
a dual belief system that hailed from the tribe of Judah, because that's who's writing. That's why I
Right.
don't necessarily always deal with, I don't agree with the documentary hypothesis.
The
To me, it's
Yahweh
been
and the
debunked.
Elohim. Right.
Yeah, I don't deal with that at all, because
The
if
free,
that is to be held true, you should never see the Yahwist and the Elohist um, language being used together, right? But in Genesis chapters 18 and 19, you see Yahweh being used, right? In Genesis chapter 18, that's supposed to be
so,
attributed to the Elohist.
yeah, but
Well,
they're going back and rewriting in Yah. Cause so look, if I said Bereshit bara Elohim, right?
mm-hmm,
In the
mm-hmm,
beginning Elohim created.
mm-hmm.
That's but if you go to Strong's Concordance and look at that, it'll be Yahweh written there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's what and that's why you do have to be careful with these concordances, because they will do
Mm-hmm.
that. But
Mm-hmm.
it's not as old as what we know, some of the oldest texts that we have, because even in the Codex Sinaiticus is still written as Yahweh El, right? Still written as Yahweh. So
Uh-huh.
in some other older codex, it's still written that way. So it's just it's just one of those things, right?
I'm reading
Hey,
this.
brother Lau, I'm not talking crazy about your brother Reggie, man. I just said there's a new Dr. Reggie on the block. That's all. I called him the new Dr. Reggie. I didn't even say he was I said the new Dr. Reggie. Hey, and that should be uh that should be a compliment, man. You know.
What's good, Yarah? How you doing?
Hey, peace, Keon. What's good with
Not
you,
much.
pal?
Not much. Hey, I got a question, right? So you said something that was interesting to me. What was your reasoning
Did I
as to
lose him?
why? Nah, can you hear me? Oh man, I always start messing up every time I start talking, man. I don't think they want me to talk today.
Yeah,
We
I can hear you
listen.
now, though.
Okay, can you hear me now? You hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, there we go.
Yes, sir.
So so what was your explanation again of why they picked Peter to be the Pope?
Well, I think at the time, Paul's writings was very much so still controversial to a lot of people, right? And then by the time you get to the advent of Catholicism, like in the 2nd century, people are already dealing with people like Cedo, 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 and Marcion's arguments on Paul's letters or what Paul is actually saying, right? So I think that for them, they strayed away from Paul, right? They strayed away from it. I'm not saying they should have picked Paul. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying they strayed away from Paul because Paul was much more so anti-Catholicism. If you understand pretty much what he was doing and what he was saying, he would have really been anti that. So they had to go back as far as they could go to the first chosen apostle or the one called, which would have been Peter, right? And they claim.
Okay, so
Hey, hold on. I'm gonna let y'all know real quick that we have a champ coming on. Miss Dr. Too Sweet will be in the building tomorrow at 7 o'clock Eastern time, and she will be going in breaking down intelligent design versus evolution. So that's going to be powerful. That's going to be hot. We have another sister coming in, and she's going to be going in. So she got to know. She got to know something. She know her stuff dealing with this topic. All right. So Dr. Too Sweet, she's a champion on Paradigm Shift channel, DMG. She's a champ over there. So y'all be looking
Shout
for
out
her.
to DMG.
Yeah, she's coming.
Yeah.
She's coming. So y'all be ready for that tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Go ahead, brother Keon. Sorry, brother.
Oh yeah, no problem, no problem. So in Matthew, right, Eliah, right, because this is my understanding. In Matthew, supposedly Jesus actually talks to Peter and says, "Peter, upon this rock I should build my church." So my understanding is that that's basically the basis of why they picked Peter to be the first pope per se. And then I mean, even in Acts, you can see Peter already being a leader per se of the evolving church, right?
Well, that's another issue as well because the actual leader that we see is actually James, the brother of Jesus. He's the actual leader. Some even call the meeting between Peter and Paul is is sort of the first gathering or convocation. I don't know why the term escapes my mind, but it's James, brother Jesus, is prominent in the New Testament as the actual leader, not Peter. So again, and I agree with you that statement when he says that upon this rock I shall build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it, right?
Yeah.
So we have to understand that it's still all, to a degree, symbolic because we know that the term Petra or Peter is rock, right? That's really what it says. So upon this rock, I shall build my church, right? So we understand to a degree, and so, but what we don't have is a endorsement of the Catholic Church from Yeshua because he makes that statement, right? It's definitely not an endorsement that the Catholic Church is his church, simply because they're idol worshipers. to a degree. They also, right? They also have a belief system in regards to like the Last Supper, right? So the Last Supper clearly in the New Testament is clearly symbolic, right? It's clearly symbolic. This is the bread which is representative of my body. That's what the New Testament says. This is the wine which is a representation of my blood, right? Not that they were drinking actually blood, but the Eucharist, according to the Catholics, they actually believe that is what they are doing. They're actually eating the very body and drinking the very blood of Christ. So it's subtle differences in their fundamental belief system, again, which is why I can't call them Christians. But that's a good question, Keon.
Did you see the presentation that Smash did on here about the eating the mummies and how they believe that by eating the mummies they could get in tribute the God's attributes of that God and the powers?
Yeah,
Stay on
yeah,
topic.
yeah, yeah. But that
hey, Yarah, sorry to come in, but
it's okay.
you know, we got to close this thing out.
No doubt.
I got to take care of some stuff. So, did Cube get a chance to ask questions? He came back in.
Not yet.
All right, go ahead, Cube.
Yeah, so this is a little bit off topic, and since we closing, it's perfect. So, Yara, what I wanted to do is I still wanted to have that debate with you, but I wanted to know.
Elder Yarah, come on, Cube.
I wanted to know if you still wanted to do it, and if so, what if you wanted to do it? Can we set it up to where you can bring your 5 points of contention to Marxism, communism, and then I'll bring my 5 points of contention towards capitalism, and then we can obviously talk about things on the side. But I want to debate your 5 core topics, and you can debate my 5 core topics, and we can have that debate out. And we could title it "What's Best for the Earth," or you can,
calling them out, man. Damn, Yarah.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll take the time to do that. I'll do that. I'll bring my 5. You bring your 5. And
all right. I'll share with you my 5. I'll share with you.
Do y'all have a date
for
that?
Absolutely.
Do y'all have a date?
Nah, we just came up with it.
Okay, all right. Let me know when y'all come up with a date, and we can get it in.
Yeah, definitely. So right. Send me your 5, and then I'll send you my 5. And I'm probably gonna give my 5 on the live stream because they could come off of the dome. But yeah, I'll put my 5 out, and then you give me your 5, and then we'll debate those, and then obviously things on the side. But do you want to do what's best for the Earth, Marxism, communism, or capitalism?
I didn't hear your last part. You cut out. What's best for the what?
What's best for the Earth, Marxism, communism, or capitalism?
Capitalism.
I don't have a problem with that title. Yeah, that's fine.
Because I don't want to make it black people or white people. I don't want to do that.
Right.
Yeah, I got you. I know why you did it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I know why you did it.
All right, cool. Yeah, that's what's up.
But yeah. So
I'll
send you. You send me your 5. I'll send you my 5, and then we'll get something at a date.
No doubt. I'm gonna send you an email and set it up. All right, peace,
and
y'all.
With that, Yarah, close us out. Take us home, brother.
Hey, so again, shout out to the HOK family, man. Shout out to sa.neter. Shout out to King J for coming on with great input. Shout out to Queen Napar for coming on with some great input. Shout out to Keon. Shout out to Cube with some great input. And I just wanted to bring something out there that I thought the people would find some entertainment in and get some understanding. Go do some research. It's a whole lot more that has to do with this. As Brother King J brought out. So again, man, peace and blessings to y'all, fam. Shout out to the New Torah Movement family. Shout out to all of the moderators. Shout out to Sister Professor Lovely Lady. Shout out to Cassandra Minster. Shout out to Sakina Ra. Shout out to Brother KOT. I saw you in the building. More Yahoo. Peace and blessings. Saliba, y'all know you out there. My man, Water Blue, man, I see you out there as well, family. Peace and blessings to y'all, man, and love. Be safe.
Peace to you, brother. Peace to you. We out.